to our presentation on how to transfer. As you probably already know, technology transfer is much more than just the exchange of ideas. It's the engine behind economic growth, industrial advancement, and global development. To understand all aspects of technology transfer, let's first look at the importance of intellectual property rights, or in short, IPRs. Then we'll take a deep dive into the transfer process itself, and we'll show you examples of typical contracts. And finally, we'll show you the best strategies for finding the right transfer partners. Ready? All right, let's take a closer look at what technology transfer is all about. In the first chapter, we'll talk about the importance of technology transfer and what is actually meant by IPR. So why is technology transfer so important? Many breakthrough developments would not have been possible without transfer. For example, mRNA-based vaccines, HPV vaccines for cervical cancer, or CRISPR gene editing. In addition to the actual products, research activities provide further important results, like valuable knowledge and skilled professionals, intellectual property rights, advanced infrastructure, and a lot more. Our focus is therefore on the economic exploitation of the ideas, and it's an active step to make research activities accessible outside of your own institution. When we look at the results of research activities, we see tangible assets like data, material, and infrastructure. On the other hand, there are intangible assets, such as intellectual property or IPR. Over the years, the value of these intangible assets has significantly grown. Yet, successful companies recognize the importance of building robust portfolios by combining both tangible and intangible assets. Intellectual property rights come in various forms, each offering specific protections. Patents and utility models safeguard technological inventions. Registered designs protect aesthetic appearances. Trademarks secure context-specific marks. Copyright defends authorship like software. And trade secrets shield unpublished know-how. But even before you have worked out your invention in detail, you should always carry out an FTO search. FTO stands for Freedom to Operate. It means no other party has intellectual property rights that can block the commercial use of your technology. If FTO isn't given, you can either negotiate a license with the IPR holder or explore regions or applications where the blocking rights don't apply. Now let's say you have your intellectual property rights, like patents or utility models. Then you have the right to exclude others from using your technology. It's important to meet all patentability requirements. Inventions are intellectual assets, but they only become IPR when you take steps to legally protect them. So before that, always keep in mind, keep it secret if you don't want to give your invention away for free. Be careful when you publish, give symposia, or hold classes. And most importantly, patent first, publish later. However, there are also ways of assigning the rights to your invention. Although they are the property of the inventor, they are usually transferred by signing an employment contract. The transfer process begins when you disclose your invention to your institution's technology transfer staff or external parties. To officially protect your patentable invention, you must file an invention disclosure with your institution's patent office following their provided guidelines. At the end of this chapter, let's take a brief look at some legal aspects. Understanding the distinction between IP ownership and inventorship is key. Each country has specific legal rules and regulations for this. Both IP owners and inventors must work closely together when negotiating the transfer to companies and startups. With public funding, the importance of transfer and research is constantly growing. Let's now take a look at the various options for technology transfer. Typically, ideas are evaluated for transfer very early, during the transition from basic to applied research. Now let's see in which way do we transfer the results of our activities. Transfers may have impacts on science, economy, and even society. Spin-offs are particularly important economically. Contract research covers a very broad area, while sharing your knowledge can also have an important impact on our society. Additional transfer options include staff, licenses, and usage agreements. And of course, we must not forget the sale of the physical product. As already mentioned, there are various options for technology transfer. Let's first take a look at licensing to third parties. Licensing provides access to the commercial use of your IP, such as patents, also material, data, software, and more. A third party will use this IP as protection for its own products and services. This is agreed by the respective licenses. However, it can also be done in combination with cooperation agreements or research agreements. So always check the IP part in cooperation agreements. Also, before you sign a license agreement, you should always keep two things in mind. What are your own plans? And what is your partner's business case? What value does your intellectual property have for them? Let us now discuss the case where a team from a scientific institution transforms its innovative idea and IP into a spin-off. Spin-offs typically involve licensing agreements with the parent institution, sometimes including equity participation. In most cases, there are cooperation agreements for further developments. Institutions support scientists in a variety of ways on their journey to founding a startup. For example, through consulting, qualification programs, and access to accelerators. This opens exciting career prospects for scientists while contributing to local economic growth. Another possibility for knowledge transfer is via an R&D cooperation. As the name suggests, R&D cooperation brings together at least two partners, often combining academic and industry expertise to achieve a shared research goal. Each partner contributes specific intellectual property to the project with clear work packages defined. Whether publicly funded or not, it's crucial to establish guidelines on handling IP, both existing and jointly created as well. So always check these terms carefully. Another important and often underestimated option for technology transfer is contract research. If industry partners have a specific R&D challenge to solve, they can pass it on to academic institutions and make use of relevant services such as testing or manufacturing. At the end of this chapter, we will now take a closer look at various ways of knowledge transfer. Let's begin with advanced trainings in areas like GMP or regulatory affairs. Or staff can move from academia to industry. Even in this case, institutions may feel the pinch of losing talent. The payoff can be stronger industry connections and valuable expertise. And of course, there is a transfer via scientific publications and other forms of dissemination to the public. As you can see, there are many different ways to do a transfer. It's always a case-by-case decision as to which way you go. In Chapter 3, we will look at the different types of contracts such as CDAs, NDAs, and license agreements, and how they work in technology transfer. Let's start with CDAs and NDAs. Usually, they represent the very first contract negotiated with your industry partner. It stands for Confidential Disclosure Agreement or a non-disclosure agreement. Be aware that these contracts set the tone for a collaboration. So why do we need a CDA at all? Well, a CDA is essential for sharing confidential information before a formal contract is in place. It regulates the exchange and handling of information during the early stages of collaboration. Therefore, make sure your team knows and follows these confidentiality rules. CDAs can be one-way or mutual, depending on whether your entity also wants to disclose information. It's crucial that the contract parties and scope are clearly defined, and the confidential information is labeled and documented. Make sure the contract specifies how long information must stay confidential, even after the CDA ends, which is usually after 10 years. And watch out for tricky clauses like destroying copies, which is not feasible for IT backups, for example. Now let's dive into the basics of license agreements. With a license, you grant third parties or licensees the right to use your IP. Under what conditions and for what license fee is then specified in the license agreement. Now, when it comes to license agreements, it's always important to limit the license's scope as much as possible. This keeps future licensing options open and maximizes sales potential. Here are the key considerations. The type of licensed IP/IPR can be a patent, know-how, or a combination of both. Then you should define the exact use, such as manufacturing or distribution, and which areas the license applies to. Of course, you should specify the countries in which your IP may be used. And finally, you can specify the number of users. Is it a non-exclusive single use that you can grant to an unlimited number of licensees? Or is it a sole license that is limited to one license holder and one licensee? With an exclusive license, only the licensee, not you as the owner, can use your IP. In this section, we'll give you a brief overview of the most important approaches to finding transfer partners. There is not one, but many ways to find transfer partners. One approach, for example, is market analysis through public information, such as company reports, or statistic tools like Statista. And of course, there is Google too. To facilitate a transfer, you can create public awareness in all kinds of media. But this requires close collaboration between scientists, TTOs, and local press offices. You can also effectively support your marketing efforts through scientific publications. Because research-oriented companies generally keep a close eye on the state of research in their specific technology area. And even more promising are talks given at relevant scientific meetings and conferences. There you can also meet potential partners at the company corner. Having a booth at a trade fair can be very expensive. You need to attract enough attention to your stand to get a return on your investment. Partnering conferences are not cheap either, but they might offer the best cost-benefit ratio of all. No other conference type can deliver so many qualified contacts and sales pitches. And of course, social networks can also be valuable sources of potential customer contacts. So use every opportunity to expand your network. But be selective about who you invite to keep the quality of your network high. Okay, that was our overview of the technology transfer topic. Let's finish by summarizing the most important points once again. Technology transfer is crucial. It transforms your IP into real-world innovation, fueling growth and creating lasting impact. Be careful with your know-how and IP. Protect your IP and consider what you share and what you don't. NDAs and cooperation agreements are a necessity in technology transfer. And if everything does not run smoothly straight away, don't worry. Always keep in mind, contracts take time. Do you have any questions and need further information? Or would you like to discuss your ideas, or simply need help finding your way in the transfer world? Then don't hesitate and contact your local Saxo Solutions Innovation Manager now.